way to make homemade spaghetti sauce from fresh raw tomato to serving the plate in only about 20 minutes. And I know you're like, what? Because normally this takes forever when you're making fresh from tomatoes, because there is a process of getting the peelings off that normally most people will do. They'll either heat up some water and blanch, and the skins will, the tomato will boil a little and you'll have to peel those skins off, or you'll roast them in the oven and get those skins off. But I'm going to show you a secret, a trick that I do, because you know I'm all about learning how to do these things more practically, so I'm always looking for an easier way to do it, a quicker way to do it, get this done, get this canned, and move on to the next task at hand. But what I'm going to show you is super, super, super easy, and you don't have to do all of that work. You can use any tomatoes for this. For those of us who grow our own, I use everything from my garden, even cherry tomatoes, because of the way that I'm going to show you how to do it. You can use all of the tomatoes. But typically the way homemade spaghetti sauces are made, or with Roma tomatoes, because they're thicker, they're more meaty and not so much seedy. So they are the best for making a thick, you know, robust tomato sauce. But I find you get more flavor with variety, like throwing cherry tomatoes and stuff in there. But this is my secret, and I'm going to show you how to do it, and it's super, super simple. Alright, for those of you that have watched my videos before, you know that my blender is my best friend when it comes to canning, because I figured out so many ways to cut the time in the canning process by blending the stuff before you start the cooking process. And so this is all that I do. You can skip that whole process of roasting or blanching and peeling and trying to get the skins off and all of that, which will add about an extra hour's worth of work to the process. Skip that completely. Throw the whole thing in the blender and just blend it to puree, and then pour it in the pot, and you're good to go. And that's really great. People try my homemade spaghetti sauce and they're like, why is it so much more flavorful? Why is it so good? And the truth of the matter is that we all know that more vitamins and nutrients are in the skins than in the inner parts of the plants in most cases. So you're losing a lot of flavor when you're boiling the tomato first, and you're losing a lot of nutrients when you peel those skins. So for me, it's a lot better to put the whole thing in, and you can do it with all the different tomatoes that you have. Just throw them in the blender, blend them all up together until everything, including the skins, are chopped down so small that you don't have to worry about them. And then when you cook them down in the pot, you get a nice, thick, healthy, robust, vitamin, nutrient-rich meal that really didn't take any more time than a normal pot of spaghetti. Because what would normally take you, you know, just to dump it out of the jar, you can just throw this in the blender and pour it in the pot and go from there. So beginning to end, maybe 20 minutes. This makes it so much easier. It's a game changer. You're not even going to want to buy jarred sauce anymore. So I'm going to show you how it works. The onions got me. Can you tell? They got me good. But if I was starting a pot for a home meal, I would start by browning my ground meat, and then I would add my onions and seasonings. But since I'm not doing that, I'm actually doing this to jar, to can. I don't want to put the meat in it. I just want the jarred sauce to add to my browned meats later on. So from this point on, if you're doing this straight to cook and eat, you need to start with the ground meat first. And so we're going to start at the step above that right now, adding our seasonings. All right, I know this looks crazy because some's frozen and some's fresh. That's because these are my garden peppers that I harvested and then put in the freezer all chopped up. So there's bell pepper in there, there's banana pepper, there's big gems, there's some jalapenos, so there's sweet and spicy in there. But all you really need is bell pepper, so you can do that. That's my onions, which I just threw in the blender, so they're just chopped up really good. Garlic, lots of garlic, you have to do that. And of course green onions out of the freezer, and just a couple of different onions. But typically, when I'm just making a quick pot for the family, I'm usually going to just use onion, bell pepper, and garlic. And a lot of times I have all these other things in the freezer from my garden, so I throw them in because I have them, but you don't have to. So we're going to put a little bit of olive oil to get that going, and just start wilting down all of those seasonings. All right, then you're going to want to season to taste with whatever spices that you particularly like. I tend to start my base with everything that I do with some sea salt, some garlic powder, some pepper, and then usually a seasonal, which in Louisiana is going to most commonly be called Tony's, but it's whatever seasonal you like. And basically the only thing that's in the seasonal is cayenne, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, stuff like that. So it just makes it a quick blend, but you could put whatever seasonings you like. All right, so while my onions are beginning to wilt, I'm gonna chop up my tomatoes. As you can see, I just threw them right in there. If there's any bad spots on the tomatoes, you're gonna wanna cut that off. And if you have a hard, sometimes the tomatoes will have a hard stem right there, you wanna cut that part off too, but these are really soft, so I'm not even bothering with it. And yeah, there's still some onion in the blender, which is fine because it's all about to get mixed up anyway. So then we just want to go ahead and turn that on. All right, and you want to get that chopped up really, really blended in there really good. I'll show you what it looks like. Oh, if I can do it without making a mess. So you can see it's kind of like a smoothie, which is what you want because there won't be any chunks of the skin, and it's going to make it cook so much quicker because it's chopped up so fine. So when our onions are ready, we'll add that in. All right, once your onions are wilted a little bit, I find this is the best stage to add some cornstarch because it incorporates easier. If you're doing just, you know, a one-serving meal, then probably a tablespoon or two of the cornstarch is plenty. But obviously, I'm doing more to can, so I don't know how much I put. I just sprinkled a bunch in. That's going to really thicken that sauce up a lot. You can also add, at this point, you can add tomato paste if you would like, which I usually do. I like tomato paste. You can make your own tomato paste, or you know, you can buy some ready-made. But really, tomato paste is tomato and cornstarch for the most part, so you're kind of making that, but it doesn't hurt to add some more if you like. So I'd say 1 can for a 1-pot meal, maybe 3 cans if you're making a bunch to can. Alright, so if you are going to add a little tomato paste, homemade or not, I would do it at this point because I like to kind of, I don't want to say brown my tomato paste, but I like to kind of fry it down, get it really well incorporated. I find it gives it a richer flavor, and it tends to darken up your sauce a little bit. So I like to kind of get it good and mixed in there. You can also add some beef stock to this if you want, but you don't have to because I'm typically later, whenever I'm going to use this, I will brown some ground meat first and then throw it in there, or meatballs, or chicken, or if you want vegetarian, just leave it without. So at this point, we're going to start pouring in our pureed tomato, and I'm going to just puree it all and keep pouring and incorporating until we get it all mixed in. Get it stirred up. And if you think it's too thick and it might start to scorch a little, either turn your heat down or you can add a little water or broth to it. But the tomatoes are pretty moist, so it should be good. I would avoid adding very much water because you want it to be as thick and concentrated as possible so that it doesn't take up that much space in your jars. You can always reconstitute and add more water later when you go to cook it for the actual meal. Alright, so it's cooked down nice and thick. The flavor is amazing, unbelievable. It's so good, so much better than what you get in the jar, and it's healthy and there's not a bunch of chemicals in it. Oh, it's just amazing. Your friends are going to be so impressed because it just tastes so much better. So at this point, I'm going to jar it, and then I'll show you how to can it. Once our spaghetti sauce is jarred, we're going to need to pressure seal them. For sugary preserves and jellies, you don't have to do this, but for anything that's not containing a lot of sugar, I like to pressure can. Now, if you don't have a pressure canner, you can hot water bath these, but if you do that, I would use them pretty quickly or store them in the refrigerator. I'm just not satisfied with a hot water bath canning. And you can go back to my channel to see what a hot water bath is. Hot water baths are great for jellies and simple things, and you get anything above that, it's safer to me to pressure. Alright, you want to take your pressure canner, you want to put 3 quarts of water in it. It's all you need. You don't need to submerge the jar. The water is just to create steam to build the pressure. You want to put your rack in there to get your jars up off the bottom so that it can bubble without clinking your jars around. Put all of your jars inside of your canner. Space them as evenly as you can. Alright, lock your lid on safe and secure. Right, once your lid is locked and secure, go ahead medium heat, get it up to pressure. Watch your gauges. When it gets to the pressure that you need, go ahead and turn your heat down, adjust your toggle, your vent, and make sure it maintains at that pressure for 25 minutes. When that 25 minutes is up, you can turn the heat off, you can let it vent, you can let it cool down and take your jars out. I can't tell you what pressure you need to use because it varies by elevation, but I'll go ahead and give you a chart so that you can look and see what pressure you need for your elevation and maintain it at that pressure for 25 minutes. And your jars will be absolutely sealed. They will be, all the air will have been pushed out. They'll be safe to leave on the shelf for probably about 2 years would be about the max shelf life you would safely want to do that. They probably could last a good 5 years, but I'd say within 2 years, if you haven't eaten that, you don't need it, throw it away. So that's all you have to do. You do want to pressure can your tomatoes if you're not going to eat them right away. Anything, because you have a lot of other vegetables in there. You have all those onions and peppers and all that. So it's a good practice to always pressure can anything that's not sugar based. The sugar is high acidic, so you're okay with sugar based, just hot water bathing, but everything else pressure can makes it safe. So that's all you gotta do, and you will end up with amazing homemade tomato sauce that you can put on the shelf and just leave there all year long. And whenever you want it, just brown you some meat, dump it in a pot, make you some noodles. In no time you'll have amazing homemade spaghetti. So go ahead and try it. Alright, this was 10 pounds of Roma tomatoes. It made 5 quart jars. If you're doing just one batch for one home use meal, you're going to want at least 12 Roma tomatoes. So, there you go.